Good morning, Emily Miller.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good.
If it's Wednesday, it must be Facebook Live Day.
Redwood City, rainy Redwood City today.
That's right, live from beadshop.com. Here we are.
Finally, we're inside hanging out and beading.
That's right.
In the rain. Oh, it's the best.
Around the rainy bead table today. And there we are. We're on.
Yeah.
I can see that we're up and running. There we are.
It's funny to watch ourselves a little delayed on our computers.
That's right. We've just come.
We get a little feedback.
We've just gotten up.
Yep.
Great. Well, it's great to have everybody with us today. We are going to definitely have fun with vintage finds, since that's what this is called.
I like that we're doing this sort of section area by area.
That's right. Today, if it's Wednesday, it must be vintage finds. Yeah, no, it's going to be really fun. We have a lot of really great stuff to share with you. It looks like everybody's jumping on. We've got Geeta. Geeta will be here, is on moderating as beadshop.com, so she'll be doing a lot of linking. We couldn't do it without you, Geeta.
Thank you, Drea, too.
And Drea's up and moderating. Janice is actually off today.
Taking a snow day.
Yeah, she's got some guests visiting her, so we are going to be sans Janice today. And just to let you guys know, as a reminder, for Facebook Live, you know, you can watch it a myriad of places, right?
We love it live, if we can get it.
We love coming at you live, but if you watch us other times, you can watch us right here on our Facebook page. You can also go to our YouTube channel, give a subscription there. The YouTube channel, you don't always see everybody's comments, so sometimes you see us talking into the
there's kind of good and bad about that, I guess. You know, the comments sometimes can be chitty chatty.
Yeah, a little,
and we understand that there's the chitty chatty and the not chitty chatty, so it's okay.
Right. Yeah.
But it's kind of nice to see what other people are thinking about. I don't know. I sort of like watching it on YouTube. To me, it's a little faster sometimes.
Yeah, and it's people I know blow it up real big on their TVs. And watch us on their smart TVs. Yeah. So we're almost life size coming at you, which is kind of awesome. You can also
not bigger than life size.
Bigger than life. It's really true. You can also watch us right on our website on the Facebook Live page. So there's a lot of places that you can go to watch the video.
Well, and of course the chitty chatty part. We always have a few minutes of catching up in the mornings, and if you want to skip past that, you move your slider up about 15 minutes or so.
About 15 minutes.
Maybe 10.
Yeah, Drea always, in the episode notes that you can download, there's always kind of an episode wrap-up about the broadcast that releases the Monday after the Wednesday broadcast, and Drea's really good at putting those minute markers in and saying where you go.
It does mean you can slide around in there and not have to watch the frou-frou stuff that doesn't
That's right. It doesn't pertain to the learning, but since we're live and it's Wednesday morning, let's chat a little bit. Well, it's great. It looks like we've got everybody here. Brandon's behind the camera. You and I are in front of the camera, and people are jumping in from all over. It's great to see everyone. Awesome, awesome. Look at everybody on there.
I know, it's awesome to see all those faces.
Great.
You know, have we ever done on our Facebook group page? Have we ever done like a photo check-in?
No,
you know,
that would be funny.
I know that people post on their
profile
picture, but it would be kind of fun to do kind of a regular portrait so that we can see your face and kind of put the names and faces together. It doesn't have to be a funny portrait or anything, but maybe something with a pretty piece of jewelry on.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Selfie time.
Selfie time. Yeah. Take a nice selfie and post it. And then we'll put names and faces together.
Let's do our
right now.
Let's start.
Okay.
We're going to start with ours.
Okay, hold on.
We'll start this for the group.
Right.
We might as well. Here, flip the camera around, Grandma. There we go. All right, we'll start with our selfie and we'll post it. There we go.
Such a good selfie.
We will start. Well, chin forward. Yeah. That's the clue of selfies.
Lead with your chin.
Start with the chin, because no one can tell you really, but it firms everything up. It looks good. Well, we will start our photo roll call in the group with this one.
No, I just think it's kind of nice.
I think it's a great idea.
See your face and the simplicity of just your face,
It'll be
so that we
super
can
fun.
put faces and names together. Because I imagine in my mind, I've already given you faces.
Yeah. So we want your real faces.
So we do want your real
That'll
faces.
be fun. And only if you want. No pressure.
Yeah.
No pressure.
Absolutely.
No pressure.
Yeah.
You are wearing something new that you made.
I'm wearing something, my jewelry list morning
Yeah,
neck.
we always like to talk about how
I
we're
finished my knitted
super crafters.
scarf.
It's beautiful.
So beautiful.
Really beautifully
Wish I could
done.
remind you to tell you what the, I know it's very dark. Brandon's
when
like,
you-
oh, she's killing me.
There's no way against your sweater.
This is a kind of a dark indigo blue yarn, and I've forgotten the maker already.
I think is it Malabrigo?
No, it's not Malabrigo.
But I
it's,
love Malabrigo. Madelinetosh.
Madelinetosh.
Mm-hmm. My two go-tos.
All hand
Beautiful.
dyed, and it's got
Gorgeous.
some beautiful variations in this dark indigo blue, which is one of my favorite
you
colors.
did a beautiful job.
Thank you. I just
And
finished it, and it makes me crazy not
You're
to have it on.
wearing, we'll talk a little bit about the jewelry we're wearing.
Yeah.
You guys will recognize what I'm wearing.
We've got some new
But
fun
Emily's
things.
got some new fun things. We're doing some more Facebook Live planning.
Yeah.
So maybe you'll
Absolutely.
see some of these
And it's
coming
just
up.
sitting up on my dresser, and I thought, oh, I should
Yeah.
wear that tomorrow.
Yeah,
You
you
know?
should.
Thank you, Brandon. It
You
did
should
actually. I could
indeed.
see looking on the color. You can on the computer screen. You can see the colors.
Yeah.
And now it's too warm, so
Yeah, now you're warm.
now I'm flushed.
Now you need some air.
Yeah, air.
Well, let's talk a little bit while the camera is facing us. Let's talk a little bit about the piece that we're working on and the origin of this project.
This is a classic, isn't it?
It is, and then we're going to just jump on in. So, back in the day when the bead shop, well, beadshop.com was the bead shop, was our brick and mortar stores, we did a lot of, I would call, fancy necklaces, right? Say something necklaces, statement necklaces.
Later to become
Yes,
statement
necklaces. And our vintage finds, pardon me, were really a staple of those necklaces. And we would use, big carved pieces like this, multiple strands from those kind of thing. When Janice designed this project, it's called Born Yesterday, she kind of took that aesthetic, that kind of statement necklace, kind of that signature, the bead shop style, and kind of turned it into a beadshop.com statement or staple.
I know this fits in really well with the aesthetic of our area. California is not hot and not cold. We wear a lot of layers. We often
like to
wear
layer our jewelry.
sort of simple garments with, then you need a little something on top of it to give it some oomph.
Yeah.
And these are really nice that you can kind of play with them. You can knot them.
Yeah.
This red one actually on top is appears to be a doubled strand, but it's actually one long strand that's been folded in half and put through double. So it could be a long strand or it could be a short strand, which is something to think about in making jewelry. I know a lot of you are beginning to participate in different craft fairs and things, and I hear talk about that on the group a lot about how do I make my pieces more approachable, how do I make it so people are more interested, and one of the ways you can do it is making it be more adaptable.
And you can see I've taken the
Find
center
right off.
This was the original Born Yesterday project, and so it just turns into a simple strand,
Right.
just like this.
And if you had another pendant, you could slide that on it.
Yeah,
a metal pendant.
it's really versatile.
Really, it's lovely to have all these options to work with. So this
was a
becomes
piece-
nice. This nice long piece.
Yeah.
I might actually
You could
wear
double
this
it.
with the clasp on the side.
On the side, it would look
because
really pretty.
it's kind of cool.
Yeah. This was the bracelet we did this as a Facebook Live a while back. It's called Intuition, and this is the bracelet from the Intuition project. The same thing happens here. This little pie that I've used, it just kind of comes right off. You kind of have to walk it off of the bracelet. But then something like this could be used then to go on the bottom here.
Right.
So it's really super versatile.
If you were selling, you
original.
could have a bunch of pendants and a bunch of strands and let people mix and match.
It would be great.
Yeah.
Mix and match their pieces.
It's a really nice way to play around with that a little bit more.
So as we started to talk about doing this project, and I'm actually going to put this one on there.
Oh,
if
all
you
right.
don't mind.
Sure.
As Janice and I and Emily started talking about creating this project for the broadcast, we thought, well, the topic fun with vintage finds would be a good one because vintage finds are fun. And for those of you who are not familiar, vintage finds on our website, beadshop.com, they're a category that you
It's a
can
big
shop.
section,
And it's a
yeah.
big section, all like beautiful carved pieces. It's a vendor who has these pieces that are just from long ago, and the quality of these pieces are no longer.
Right.
So this is, the Vintage Finds collection is a
sort of limited
finite
time.
Yeah. So, like, we've had other things in, then they've gone out, we've sold them out, like this, the original piece for Born Yesterday, it's no longer available. So, but they do go in and out as we sell through them.
Big warrior piece is really stunning, and you know, each piece is a little different. The color combinations are a little bit different. Sometimes they're a little darker, sometimes a little lighter. Gives you some things to play around with.
Yeah, and that's what Janice used. This is the piece that Janice, it's called Dynasty, or as we like to say, Dynasty. So she didn't make this one convertible, right?
Mm-hmm.
She did this kind of the same kind of, you know, she strung this piece here, and we'll look at it a little bit closer when we move the camera and take a little bit of a closer look at these. But it kind of incorporates some of the macrame, it incorporates some, you know, just straight stringing, and then we've been doing a lot with tassels lately. So it
tassels are
incorporates,
kind of it and hip right now. So,
and so I also let me put mine up there. Mine is in progress, and I just want to show you a really good front view. So let's
pull
trade
this one
off, and I'm going to put this one on. So this is mine called Copper Verdigris, and I got the inspiration for this because I love metal, if you don't mind. Thank you, Emily. I love metal. I love copper, the way that copper looks. And on I have a spinning wheel that half of the wheel is covered with this copper, like a copper verdigris.
Oh,
You've
lovely.
seen my
Yeah,
wheel
I have.
that has that copper verdigris overlay. So I took the inspiration right from that. And so I used this I Ching coin, some other things that you're going to see when we examine a little bit closer. But you can see my piece here has some asymmetrical elements to it. And it's similar to the one that I'm wearing here. This is one that I made myself. It was for, I think it wasn't this past Christmas, it was Christmas before. And I used this large pie in the center. And then just the macrame. The macrame that I used here was regular Ceylon, but the cord we're using here is the Chinese knotting cord.
The Chinese knotting cord, one of the things I like about it versus the Ceylons, it's a woven cord rather than or a braided cord rather than a plied twisted cord. So it doesn't have the twists that can come undone and look a little wimpy from place to place. It's much more consistent in that way.
Yeah, it has a lot of like the hand on it is really good.
Yeah,
and it has some presence to it.
It's solid, but it's not thick. You know, even the bigger sizes of it they have that solidity to them, but they don't feel stiff or.
And they're really easy to knot with.
Yeah,
it
looks
very
great.
Fluid. Yeah. And so something like this, and I'm still undecided. I'm going to show you how I'm going to embellish the front of this, and I'm undecided about tassels or no. So you guys can maybe help me decide what I want to do with this.
I think the layering is really in right now. You know, when you look at trends, and we look at a lot of jewelry. Layering either by wearing separate pieces together or having a piece that has multiple strands in it, that kind of effect is really popular.
Yeah, and I think it really has a nice, I don't know, what does Janice say, museum quality look to it.
Yeah. We we think about sometimes about jewelry as when you go shopping for it or you look around, you see things at a place like Claire's, or you see things at a department store like Macy's or Nordstrom's, or when you go to a big museum like the Museum of Modern Art or the Asian Art Museum. I know my first and last stop of the day is the museum
store. Always at the,
and my husband's like, let's go, let's look at some art.
No,
I'm like,
you've got to look at the jewelry counter. Wait. Yeah.
This is work.
Museum jewelry is just delightful.
There's someone who's curating it with a very careful eye.
Very.
And they're looking to match the aesthetic of the people that might be coming. But they're also, it's another place where there's an exhibit. And it's treated that way. It looks really beautiful and is always entertaining to visit with.
Yeah, no, and I like that museum jewelry. If they're nice, they can try. She
bought me a piece of museum jewelry.
Oh, I did.
You did.
I forgot about that.
I know.
It is a nice piece.
It
Well,
is.
you'll have to wear that in. It'd
I
be
know.
fun to kind of
We
recreate.
can play with that too.
I forgot all about that.
I know.
Oh,
I haven't. I
how
look at
nice
it every
I am.
now and again.
Oh,
You're
no.
super nice.
Oh no!
my
I forgot
God.
about that. That's so funny.
Kay Richburg is really nice.
Well,
by the way, in case you didn't recognize that.
Only on other days. I don't know. Odd days. I don't know.
Snore.
Well, let's take a look at. Let's start moving the camera, Brandwin, and let's take a look at what's going on with the vintage finds. Let's start looking at some vintage finds up close, and talk a little bit about how we would start to tackle designing your own piece, and then we're going to talk about designing these pieces. How does that sound, Emily Miller?
Sounds wonderful. You
All
pulled
right.
some really pretty pieces out of vintage finds too.
Yeah. Well, we're going to look at the projects in just a second, but let's start with some of the designing and stuff that we've got here. I'm going to move.
Your mom said you brought her the Hope Diamond.
I did. I bought her when I went
a
to.
repro?
I did the repro when I went to. It's at
DC?
it's in DC.
The Smithsonian.
And I spent a good amount of time, and this was quite a few years ago, so it was way before a lot of social media and stuff. And so I took some photos, and then I called my mom and I said, "Ma, I spent a lot of time with the Hope Diamond just for you." And I bought her a pin. It's a fancy pin, I think. I think it's a pin. I don't know. I don't remember that well, but it was really fun. Whoops, I just dropped something off the side there, but I don't think I need it. I'm going to trade
Susan
this up.
Parker, those blue beads are matte lapis.
Yeah, matte
and
lapis.
They are as yummy as you are anticipating they are.
Yeah, and we're going to go over the everything that's listed for the project. Brandon, you want to get kind of in this area a little bit more and not get kind of the back of the table, I think. Be a little closer, and I'm going to move some things here to the center. If you go to our Facebook to find the listing of all the ingredients, if you go to our Facebook Live page and you click on the Facebook Live photo, you're going to see the project. It's called Born Yesterday, and then you're going to click on that, and you're going to see the two pictures for these two new projects. The one that Janice did called Dynasty, and the one called Copper Verdigris, which I did. So you will really you'll be able to see the entire list. But we'll go over the materials for these also in a second. But I went to our Vintage Finds collection over the wall, and I just pulled some things that I thought would be really cool for you to take a look at. Now, we also used in these pieces, we used some of the glass rondelles, and let me pull some of those in as well. And let's get a variety, some of the 5 mils and stuff.
Okay.
As well. So I'm going to put those guys here. So we've got some big centerpieces in our Vintage Finds collection. This is the Warrior. It's called Warrior. This one here, it's called Seeking, and this is Seeking in Serpentine. We've got this guy here called Being Open, and we've got this one here called Double Happiness. All of these large pieces are perfect for centerpieces. This one's called Still Life here, and you can see we've got, it's a little bit smaller, but it's still nice and chunky. And then we've got our carved pieces. This one's called Pie, and we've got this one here, this larger pie necklace here. Now, when you're starting to design with these pieces, and when I like starting with the centerpiece of these as kind of my guiding force for the necklace design. And a lot of these pieces you can see, like this one here, this is the Seeking, this one here. You can see how this one has a big giant hole up here at the top, or what I'm calling the top, and then a smaller hole kind of here at the bottom. Now you can decide how you might want to string this. Maybe if we turn this around, we could string it so that all of your fringe might come down from here, and your necklace attaches up here. That would work. Or we could turn it around, and this could be the top, and you could have fringe coming down from the bottom.
It reminds me of a Chinese lock also. I really like that one a lot.
Yeah, I love this one. And something like this one, the Still Life it's called, this one, you can see it's got 3 holes. So I could connect my strands from this way, and it also has a center hole, so I could connect all my strands from here and here, or I could put strands here, and there, and there. It just really depends on, you know, where you want to go with it. Something like this is a piece that Janice used, this Warrior, and I want to show you what she did was she actually glued this little flat serpentine piece. She glued it right on so that the holes line up, and you can see in the back how she knotted. She started all of her tassel came through one of these 8mm rondelles, came through, put another 8mm rondelle on top, and then had all of her strands coming out. She glued this first, and then she added that connection in there. And I thought that was very clever.
Layering again, too. That Wanderlust piece, I think it comes in a couple of different colors, too. But
Wanderlust, this guy right here.
Yeah,
right?
that it's got such a good brown tone to it. And it really took her piece in a direction for me. It married up with the rondelles that she chose, the coral colored rondelles. And I think it also speaks a little bit into these copper hematite rondelles also.
Yeah, this is such a good spacer.
I mean, if we took this away, and this is a lot of times what I find myself doing, is I always think of this as the kitchen sink method, right? Put everything in there and then pull stuff out. You know, if we were talking about doing that tassel down the front without that brown background, I think this doesn't work quite as well. It needs some more brown in there to work with, and so that pulling that Wanderlust in there really helped it a bit.
Yeah,
but do I Ching?
And you could use these the really cool I Ching coins. There's we have a ton of those flat carved pieces in the Vintage Finds collection that you could use. You could also, with something like this, I wanted to show you guys this piece here, and I'm going to get another. Do we have some more scrap paper? I guess I could. Okay, because I don't want to draw on our little background.
You can draw on it.
Yeah, I guess we could.
That's what it's for.
Yeah. I'm just going to do several, so
Okay.
it might.
Let me grab you.
Okay, it might confuse people. So something like this. These are our pagodas from the Vintage Finds collection, and you can see something like that pagoda has a pretty big hole. So if I were designing this piece, let's say, and I wanted multiple strands, or I needed something to kind of anchor my strands before I went up top, you can see Janice did that here with this King Shadow. But you could also do it with something like another one of these Vintage Finds. So something like this, what I might do is, here's that piece, the Still Life. Here's Still Life. And maybe I would do some kind of a little macrame loop, and I'd put it through here, and I'd have my macrame loop come back around and macrame here, and then I would have my piece here, and then maybe I would have, like if I were macrameing over 4 strands, I could probably get 4 strands over there, so maybe I'd make this, maybe it would come up a little bit higher, and then maybe I could macrame, and then I could continue up, even using these beads, or I could use, maybe I'd use metal, I don't know, here, and then maybe here, and then this would be macrameed here, and macrameed here, and then another King Shadow here, and then go all the way up, right, macrame, and then one of these. So it just depends. This design, and the thing about mixing it with the macrame in these stations, you can make this section as long or as short as you want.
Right, and I think, what you're doing on your piece, that giving it a little bit of air.
Yeah.
Gives it a little bit of room to kind of read what's happening there. This one's a little closer.
Yeah.
And I still like it. It's just a different feel.
Yeah, and so you can see exactly. You can make like these, since these are all the same. These guys here, these are our serpentine, one of our serpentine strands from the vintage finds. Having them a little closer together like this, having it be a little more regular, I didn't want to have too much space in between.
Right.
But here, if I've got all of this negative, all the shape, I want to create some negative space in between them.
You know, I noticed there was a comment, and I think that might have been Suzanne, that she wasn't, she didn't realize Warrior or these other pieces were so large. So I just wanted to remind you, and maybe we can put one of these in for comparison. This is the little Warrior.
Right. Whoops,
sorry. And that's the big Warrior. So if you're feeling like that big Warrior is too much of a contrast, or too much of a big chunk,
right there,
then you could actually come in with these little Warrior. And there's also Villagers, which is the size. Smaller size of being open.
Being open, and this is being open right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
we do have them in a couple of different sizes.
Having that little variation is really nice. Although don't be afraid of big. You know, if all you've ever done is small, throwing in that bigger piece,
it's time.
It can be really interesting, for sure.
And the same thing with these carved pie discs. This one, the smaller one, is called pie. And the big one, what's the big one called, Em? I can't see.
Perfect pie.
Perfect pie is this one.
Yeah.
Right.
We just had Pie Day, so.
Yeah, so it is the perfect pie to use. We also have things like these knots and these what we like to call connectors or components like this. This carved knot, it's the eternal knot, the carved piece. And then I have, you know what, I didn't get the name. Can you pull up the vintage finds? It's this one, cranberry. It's the cranberry mix, right?
Yes.
The cranberry mix on this one, I'm going to move this stuff over, and let's start with a fresh sheet. Nurse, let's put a fresh sheet down for the patient. There we go. All right. So like this eternal knot that's here, something like this could be connected, again, with that same, you know, macrame loop or however you want to do it, and then we could put a bead or something.
Well, we could do the
over
leather
top.
Loop like Janice did on her trail
We
ride.
could do the leather loop. We could put something like these little square peg, I think this one's called. And then you could come and you could, you know, strand it this way. You could also use this one in the body of the piece. So you could connect from this side, macrame, and then have your beads coming this way, and come this way, macrame, and have your beads coming that way. So it could be a dangle, or it could be a component in the body of the piece.
Can I
as
stick
well.
my wrist in there?
Yeah.
Do you think that'd be too big? To put it?
You know, for me it is. I was going to use this in that year-end wrap that I did, and it was a little big.
I might do that. I mean, it's bigger than my watch.
Cool.
I have a big, you know, masculine watch, but it's only just a little bit bigger than that. I might do that, and then
it's a little big for my wrist.
It might be big for your wrist. Scale up in the macrame cord to the 1
It would be nice. Yeah, 0.8.
0.8 is the biggest.
It's the biggest. Yeah.
Oh,
it
right.
would look really nice.
Yeah.
And then we also have things that have like some interesting negative shape. These are called turtle shells, these little guys, and they are literally 2 little turtle shells, it looks like.
I like those, and the pagodas are very attractive.
And something like this would go really well if you used like a round in between it, right? If I just laid those guys out like this and like this. These lapis, these matte lapis, are just so delicious.
Can you reach me the ruler that's sticking out up there, or the
This is the
caliper?
millimeter gauge, yep. And so something like this, you were talking earlier, Emily, about having some contrast.
Yeah.
It looks really nice when you have kind of a stone-on-stone contrast, the color contrast.
I agree. And in this case, the
Pardon me.
The matte lapis, you know, matte stones you didn't used to see those too often, and they've kind of come around into a whole version of themselves. They're really something that we like and see a lot of, but you can still get stone that's got a nice shine to it, and having that matte gives you another place to have some contrast. I'm always big on talking about contrast. So contrast can be large or small. So a big pie stone and a small bead. would be one way to have some contrast. And this is something I might do with multiple strands to kind of smooth that contrast out a little bit. I might do not so much contrast with my stones all being, or my beads all being similar in size and shape. I might also do contrast in color, so light and dark. So you have a dark pie, you might want to have light beads kind of going with it. I just, you asked me to pull some rondelles, and somebody ordered these new colors. Holy Toledo. I've never seen this before.
That's because we have so many rondelles on the wall.
Holy Toledo.
I know, aren't those nice?
These are really great.
I was, when I was stalking them the other day, I was really struck by how much I love
this is called the Bone Mix. So the 8mm rondelle, and they're in ivory and sort of a dark cream. And they're fluidly mixed through each strand, so each strand's a little bit different.
Pardon me.
But look at that. Now that's low contrast, right? Not so much color difference between them, or size, no size difference. But I still like.
They look with this.
I know they look great with that. They look great with this.
Yeah.
And this all together. Get rid of this guy. Awesome.
Yeah,
look at
beautiful.
that. So for me, designing is sometimes kitchen sinking it, putting kind of everything in and pulling out the things that then kind of don't work as much. But contrast can be size, contrast can be finish, contrast can be color.
It can be shape.
Can be shape. All those things give you excitement in your piece. So on a color wheel, and this is something we need to carry, and I'll kind of keep bugging you about it. A color wheel, if you have one for mixing paint, for instance, blue and orange are opposite one another on the color wheel. So they are not complementary. They're opposing colors, contrasting colors. So that gives you more energy, more vibration in the color combination. So if you think about that same thing with contrast of size or contrast in finish, the more different they are, the more interesting and more dynamic they get to be.
The more, and you can also still use that in a monochromatic palette. You can create a great monochromatic palette by just looking at how you vary the size, shape, texture, maybe even material of the bead, and it helps to keep a monochromatic palette from being dull, right? We did have a quick question about these turtle shells. Do these beads fit inside? This is an 8mm round that we're using.
Sort of snuggles up in there.
Like what Janice used. So it doesn't fit inside the turtle shell. You might need to go down to a 6 or a 4 if you wanted something to fit right up against the hole. Or like a little seed bead, a size 8 seed bead would work as well. So I just wanted to put that out there.
And Drea was asking about scale on some of these pieces, to put a ruler with them. Drea, I'm going to do you one better. I'm going to get out our caliper. So this perfect pie? Perfect pie is about 60 millimeters. Since these are stone, you can expect variations in that, up and down, both directions. So perfect pie, about 60.
And we'll put that
one out. Just pie.
Called pie.
About 39 millimeters.
Yeah, 39 to 40.
Okay. So again, up or down a millimeter or two still would be considered that same size. The large warrior, 93.6 millimeter. And let's have a small warrior, little warrior.
A little warrior.
About 61 millimeter, 60.9, right, on that one. So a little bit of variation in size, and certainly lovely to have access to a lot of things that go together that have some similarities. I got to tell you, one of my favorite beads that I haven't played with yet, right here.
Oh, these melons. I love these guys.
Pull those out.
And these would look great, again, gathering. I almost use this in my project. Gathering a bunch of the strands together and pulling everything in through that large hole bead. It would look great. I love them.
I think they're kind of they make a great tassel top, you know?
They would.
So, where's Janice's tassel here? So this tassel coming out of here, you know, I could do this big stone on top and have a tassel coming down, or that could be my centerpiece.
Yeah, it would look great.
Right?
I just love them.
I love them too. There's something about melon beads, which are carved with these stripes
to resemble a melon.
From north to south pole here, looking like a melon, some sort, a pumpkin or whatever. They're one of those shapes I always go for.
Yeah, I love them. Love them. Well, let's get a close-up of both of these, of both of the samples here, Emily.
Okay.
So we can see what
we're
up to, so everybody can see that. And then we're going to talk about some of the essential techniques, you guys, that you're going to need to know to create a necklace like this. Let me get my board back over here. My board is a big old mess, but let me pull my sample off of it. I don't want my threads to get too tangled. So here's mine, and here is Janice's, the Dynasty project and the Copper Verdigris project. So these guys, you can see mine is a little more asymmetrical. I need to give myself a little more room here because things are getting crowded pretty fast. You can see mine's a little more asymmetrical. And so what I did was I combined two techniques on mine, or two kind of, I don't know, techniques maybe isn't the right word, but two kind of different designs. I have this classic kind of macrame with this 8mm glass rondelle contrasting with this 10mm, what did I use? I used the Red Adventurine 10mm stone round, and this is the Champagne Mix, the 8mm glass rondelle. And I just put, I think, 4 macrame stitches consistently throughout. And so that's kind of the technique I used on this side.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
When you count your macrame stitches, do you count each pair as a single stitch?
I do. Each pair is a single stitch. And I'm going to show you that when we work on the macrame over here.
Yeah, I wanted clarity too.
How I do that. Thank you. And then you can see, or you will see, I think I'm adding a little extra embellishment on the front of that, along with our little circle of bronze, and I'm going to show you how that's all, I'm going to show you how I'm going to attach that. Now what Janice did here, as we talked about it, she used the Warrior centerpiece. She glued this Wanderlust flat component to it, and the glue that she used, she actually used Zap glue, and we're going to talk about the glue in a minute. And then she put her bead through, and then put her threads through, and then created this tassel. And then you can see here, she started here in the center with her threads, came up through this large king shadow, split her threads, and just strung, and ended with this simple yet effective
the Celtic knot
button, and she just macrameed here on the back and did a macrame loop. So it's really pretty. I'm going to talk you guys through this one, how I'm going to close this off. I've got some good closure techniques for that. So let me start.
Now this one was made just simply strung.
Here's my little list.
So not strung in a way to be doubled, but the one that we showed at the beginning, one of the classic ones, was shown with a doubled strand, so a long macrame cord. And all you need to do would be to loop the clasp through that doubled end of the cord to have a double strand. So this is what we talked about first off. And then that would give you the ability to have a double strand on that necklace.
Yeah,
right?
That'd be really nice.
So this is just the extended length, and I'll measure it here in a minute. Fed through the loop twice, and then the clasp grabbing that loop of beads at the other end. Does that make sense for everybody?
It looks really nice.
Right? I'll measure it here in a minute.
And it might even be in the project itself.
Oh, it might very well be. Okay.
So some of the essential techniques that you guys are going to need to know. You're going to need to know how to macrame, right? And a lot of these are skill builders that we have already, but you're going to need to really understand the macrame stitch, and I'm going to talk to you about that in a second. You also, and I'm going to use it in mine, and we've been using it a lot lately, you're going to need to know about silk wrapping, okay? And silk wrapping is a really good fundamental technique to have in your arsenal when you're doing this. You're also going to want to know about glue, and you're going to want to know how to do just some basic ending knots, all right? So let's start by taking a look at our macrame, okay? And I have a little mock-up over here. I'm going to move this to the side. I'm going to get my mock-up going. And Emily, do you want to start your board and stuff too? And then we'll kind of break to you in just a second. But let me get rid of this. I'm going to put this list over here.
We've got piles of stuff everywhere.
We do. Our table is
kind of
so
amazing.
messy.
Oh, I like it.
I do too. So can you guys see, Brandon, you may want to come over and focus a little bit more. I think what you're moving that over so everybody can see. There we go. Get a little order here. Order.
What?
Coming right on top of
Oh, great. Perfect. So you can see on this piece, I used the large serpentine pie. I simply started this by creating a length of, I cut my cords, and I started to macrame in the center of those cords. And those cords then come through, I'm going to show you here, come through the pie, they come around, and they close up here. Okay, can you see that? And these threads are a little bit shorter, but what I did was, for the interior, what I macrameed around, I used tough cord. I used tough cord number 3. Do I need to move up?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. You can see I used the tough cord number 3. And so that's what makes the interior of your macrame. Now I could have used Chinese knotting cord, I could have used Ceylon. There's a lot of stuff I could have used. I used tough cord because it's really sturdy and strong. I liked how it has a little bit of stiffness to it. So that was the base of what I had here. Okay. So when I decide how long to cut my threads, I can always add thread along in my project, but I really want my base threads to be pretty long. And this is actually a piece for another segment of the necklace. So the thread that I have here isn't as long as I'd really cut it. I would probably cut my base threads for this piece probably at least maybe 2 threads that are a yard a piece, probably, so that my base threads doubled. I'm working with maybe about I don't know, 18 inches this way and then 18 inches on the other strand here. So about a yard, doubled over, macrame in the center, double it through to the center of your disc, and then you start creating. And you're going to do that, let me pull the sample in, you're going to do that twice, at least if you're going to be doing this type of decoration. Okay, so one of those is coming off this way and coming off the disc on one side, then I'll do it again and have it start coming off the disc on this side. Now you can see, if I turn this to the side, can you see how I've split my threads like this, and then I brought everything together with a big shadow bead. Then I started individually macrameing this length and this length, and I wove it through this disc, and I laid one of the I Ching coins on top.
Love it.
And I just went through, and so I started, I think what I did was I macrameed this length. I dropped my
measuring
tape.
There it is.
Sorry, Emily, I'm gonna reach down here. There we go. I macrameed a length, I don't know, it was probably a little more than 2 inches, maybe about 2 1/4 inches on each side, wove it through, then added another shadow, big shadow. And then I did the same thing, but I did it in miniature for these small, these are the Ashanti saucers. That's what these are. And so it's the same technique, only with the big bead and the small bead. Now, I didn't have this planned out all that much, so I had to add thread. And the place that I added thread was where these two threads cross inside the disc.
Oh, that was clever.
So it's kind of hidden there. Okay? And I'll continue. I think what I'm going to do is continue and create maybe 4 more of these sections, because right now this is about, I'm at about 4 inches here, and I'm going to want this to be, I don't know, somewhere between 8 and 10 inches on the side. So depending on how I'm going to close it. So I probably will do 6 total of these saucers on this side. So let's talk about just the simple macrame stitch, and you've got it going on there. And
I'm imitating Janice, and so I'm working with my design board, 2 clamps, and my thread.
Do you want to kind of bring that?
I will. So everybody macrames a little bit differently in their setup, but I actually have found that this is the one that I really prefer as my kind of sitting upright plan.
And the macrame stitch that you're doing is just a series of square knots,
That's
right?
correct. Yeah. Just giving Brandon a chance to move without moving my stuff myself. Right? So I took the pad out of a design board, out of a design tray, and I like these pads, by the way. This is just the light gray. When you can pick a lighter or dark one depending on what kind of thread you're using. A light board if you're working with dark thread. You can use a dark colored board if you're working with light thread. And I used a clamp at top and bottom to attach the thread to it. And then to give myself some tension, I used a spool of thread to kind of hold things up away from the board so that I can work under it. And then gives me a little bit of resistance to work against. I did cut a fairly long piece of thread here because Janice had strung directly from her macrame from that, and then just kept going. So I actually have more thread than I could possibly use here. These are my macrame strands, and I have more than double the length of the board twice. So I'm using double thread as the core. This part that I'm macrameing here is just going to be the beginning of my bail for my pendant. And so I need to macrame enough to reach all the way through, come up, and then I'll macrame double to join them together. And that gets finished off. And then I have my strands of thread to go right on up and continue on stringing my necklace. This is Ceylon thread, which actually has been a favorite of mine for years and years. I've got it in almost every color, I think.
I love the Ceylon.
And it's super durable. I can knot with it or avoid knotting. Not. Try it. Do it without knots. Either way. But I do find Ceylon to be great. My only complaint is that sometimes it's a little thick, and so then you have to scale down to the fine or the micro. But for macrameing, it shows very clearly what you're doing with macrame. It does have that twist to it and a little bit of sheen that the Chinese knotting cord or CKC does not have. Yep.
I want to show you how I've set it up here on the board, and I also want to show you how I'm going to add thread.
So let's see your setup.
So what I've got here is, you can see that I'm working in a design tray like this. And can you see how I've used one of our clampers here, and I've used just a scrap of the tough cord, and I've looped it through the pie, and
you are very clever.
I've clamped it down, and so that holds everything up here. Then on this side down here, I've clamped that CKC on the edge of my board, and I've pre-strung the beads that I'm going to use. So it's easy for me to just slide my beads up into...
I would do that too.
Up into space.
You know what else I like about pre-stringing is that if you have a pattern, you kind of have done it now. You've laid it out. And you can change it, but you don't have to think about the pattern anymore.
And you just flip that bead up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if I'm going to continue on, and so I've just done that here, and I've just started to macrame up the side. I'll show you the actual macrame stitch. Now I'm going to when I start my thread, or and you'll see this when I tie on my thread, I just start macrameing. You can tie a little overhand knot, or you can just actually start with the macrame stitch. So I'm going to slide this down, and you can also consult our skill builder for a little more in-depth. I'm going to go over this a little quickly, just because we've got a lot to cover in this segment, but we have a great skill builder about it. So if I'm looking at, if the thread is facing me, so I'm talking about this from my perspective, so it's actually backwards for you because you're looking at it as the audience. Here's my left hand over here on this side, okay? And you can see I've created a little loop of thread with my left hand side thread. I've come around, created this loop, so to my position it looks like the letter P, okay? And that loop comes up and over these base threads. Now with my right hand thread, I come and I lay it over that tail. I go underneath the base threads and up and out through the circle of the P. Okay? And you can see that results in a knot that I've tied around that base thread, and I come in and tighten. Now I need to do it in the opposite direction. And Emily, you were asking me when I count my stitches. So this is the second half of one stitch.
Right.
So I'll come in and I'll create a loop with the opposite side. I'm working on the right side now. Here's my right hand.
Reminding your P's and Q's.
Yeah, and if I'm looking at it from my perspective, this little loop of thread looks like it's forming the letter P. All right? So I come in with my left hand thread, over the tail of the P, under the base thread, and up and through the loop. And so this is part 2 of my knot, and if my first half of the knot has come a little loose, I give it a little tug to tighten, and then I bring this one up. Now, it's kind of hard for you guys to see, but the thread here, my knot, you can see there's a little scallop, or like a little bridge here. That little bridge tells me that that's the side that I start my knot onto, right here. So I know I'm going to start with this side. So I keep going back and forth. So this was one knot. Let me do a second knot all the way. This one here, the Q side, and then the P side.
I also keep
here's
an
my second
awl
knot.
close by, because if I mess that up, I need to just
take it
lightly
out.
undo it before I've even tightened it much, and the awl works really well for that.
Yeah, it does. It really does. So now I have 2 stitches here, and that's really all that I've done, 2 stitches in between. So I'm ready to slide this bead down, but notice, you guys, I'm getting a little short with my threads. So let me show you how I added some thread for this one. I used, and you can use 3 millimeter, or 0.4 millimeter, 0.5 millimeter, 0.8 millimeter, doesn't matter what size CKC or Chinese knotting cord you're using. I use the 0.4, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get my needle. This is a collapsible eye needle, and I'm going to string my CKC up through this 8 millimeter rondelle. This 8 millimeter rondelle has a huge hole.
How big?
Huge.
Good.
So I can get all of these strands through. You want to make sure not to catch the needle. If it's giving you a little bit of, there we go. I could always pull it through with a plier, but I don't need to. I'm going to come in. I'm going to slide that bead down where it goes. I'm going to cut another length of thread, whatever that length is. Maybe this is about a yard. I don't know. I'm going to give myself plenty of thread. If you give yourself plenty of thread in the beginning, you don't have to add thread. But sometimes you don't know what you're going to design.
Well, it's sort of a management thing, you know.
Yeah, using gigantic.
Using
ends.
Gigantic long pieces of thread gives you fits. Sometimes you get tangles. You got cats playing with the ends.
Yeah.
You know, it's sometimes it's more of a struggle than changing threads.
So now, see how I've, with my new thread right in the center here, I've just added the thread on, just underneath, and I'm going to macrame over all 4 of these threads. It's not going to make much of a difference. And see, I'm just starting to macrame. I'm not even tying a knot. I'm just starting my Q side of the macrame and tighten down, and then I'm going to start the P side of the macrame, and I'm going to do 2 knots. There's 1, and here's 2.
Kate, what if we do nothing but P's or nothing but Q's?
What do you think will happen, Emily?
I think you get a twist.
You do.
Right?
You get a spiral. Yeah.
So sometimes you can do macrame in a spiral too, which just adds some texture.
Yeah, and it would just be spiraling all one way. And we do those in our 5-stitch project. You can see on beadshop.com. It has a bunch of different stitches in it. That's why it's called 5-stitch, because it has 5 stitches. It is terribly clever. But we use that one in there. So now I'm just going to come in. Whoops, that's the wrong one. I'm going to put these threads through one more time, coming up through. Now, if I really, I had my glue out here, and now I've lost the glue. If I really want to be super careful.
Notice that you have plastic bags at the ready.
I do, right there. You're so good. I could give myself a little drop of glue here. This is the hypo cement. I'd give myself a little drop. I'll feed my Chinese knotting cord through 1. Then the other side, using this collapsible eye needle.
So when you add the thread, are you still getting the bead to still have something around it? I think that's the question.
Yeah, oh, you know what? That's super smart. I actually didn't. So you know what? I didn't do that. So I might actually start that knot. That's a very observant. I would tie, and you know what? It's never going to be noticed. I would tie my thread on, instead of on this side and start knotting, I'd tie it on here, bring it around, and start knotting. Super observant and clever.
Bonnie.
Nice one. But I'm also not going to worry about it. I could come in, do a little macrame over the top. No one would ever notice.
Yeah, the hypo cement's great for just getting that tiny little dot of glue to get things to hold in place. Really works well.
Come on, go through there. There we go. Now I'm going to pull all this through. I'm going to slide this guy down right there, and the glue is now inside that bead, and I'm going to clip these away. I'm going to bring this around and continue on my macrame odyssey. Now, if I wanted to go back and fix that bead, but I'll be honest, I probably won't. But if I did, let me make this real quick. Let me just tie this down, tighten that up, get rid of that baggie. I could come in, let me get my piece of Chinese knotting cord, get another piece. I'd tie it on right here. Right? I'd bring it around. Tie it on. Do a series of macrame. Over the top. Those 2 stitches. Be a little bit thicker, but not much. No one's going to be that close to you to critique this necklace. Nice and tight. Then I would glue that. No tears. Just a little bit of glue. And a little bit of glue. And I'll go ahead, let that sit, and I'll cut it away later. And that's how I would fix that. Now, I'm going to come in and I'm going to keep going with this closure, and then I'm going to show you how I'm going to add it to my the closure that I make. What have you got to show there, Anne?
Well, I finished
get this out of the way.
my macrame for my bail, and you know, we call the loop on a pendant often the bail, and what we're really making here is that loop to begin and end our necklace. And I had a little epiphany, which I often do
in the middle of this
in the middle of all this stuff, and I'm going to share it with you. So I did a little bit of macrame. Maybe an inch and a half or inch and 3/4 maybe long, and I fit it around this loop, and I thought, you know, it's kind of a little long. So one thing I did was I kind of scooched it together, just pushed my knots tighter, and I think that the length now is a little bit nicer, not worse or better, just a little bit more what I wanted. And as I did that little scooch, it moved up my thread that I was using in the center. So this was what was clamped to my board. I had a clamp where my left hand is and another clamp down here, and then I did the macrame. So as I scooted it, I realized that it was scooting up those cords as well. And I just tied my normal macrame knots as tight as I normally do. But I noticed that it got smaller, and I had a little epiphany. So
yeah, you could.
Did you see what I just thought of?
Yeah, I did.
So I pulled this through, put my bail through, and I'm going to put the ends of the thread through that loop of thread, which makes the classic lark's head knot that we often use in macrame. And I'm going to continue to slide all that stuff along. So now that kind of joins up my bail.
Yeah, it's nice, right?
Right? That worked really good. I don't know if that's what Janice did or not, but
it's a nice.
That was
look at that
smooth, right?
Super.
So now I'm
clever.
super tight, and everything is connected, just by itself being macrame. Now I do see that Janice had a little bit more macrame at the top, and I'm going to add that as well. I'm going to go ahead and clamp this to my board, which is one of the things I like about the clamps, is that we can clamp anything we want in place. So clamp it in place. Go ahead and macrame just 6 or 8 sets of knots along.
And it's really clamping and keeping it tight. Makes your knot successful.
Back in the 70s, when we were first macrameing, we used to use a safety pin and safety pin it to our pant leg.
to our jeans.
To our jeans, and then or friendship bracelets when we did those too. We would just do it right off of that piece. But these little clamps really hold things in place.
Yeah.
And they're easy, and they don't damage anything. You can clamp leather or beads or string or whatever you need to clamp in place. And they work really well.
Yeah, they're super handy.
So I'm going to grab that clamp and attach it just like that. And then my cords down the road, these are my center 2 cords. Bring those down and clamp those in place with another clamp at the other end. And I can now macrame right over the top.
It's really that is such a clever.
Oh my God, I just, when that happened,
technique.
I just went, holy cow, that worked perfectly.
So clever.
So I often think of this as a left-hand, right-hand knot. And as I get sort of P's and Q's moving along, I just find that process for me goes better if I continue to do this rather than start and stop. And whenever I start and stop, that's when I have to sort of take a look at what I'm doing and assess that I've done the right knot again. But I'm just going to go right ahead and macrame on a few sets here of knots. And if I make a mistake, it's okay. Just recognize it. No, try and recognize it before you pull it up nice and tight, though. And that would work. What's your question?
We lost the internet.
Yeah.
Oh.
We've lost our feed.
We've lost our feed.
It's a reconnecting. Stream resumed.
Yep. And we're
Okay,
good.
we're back and we're
And
back.
we're back.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Sorry about that, guys.
Let you get back going.
Right. I'm like, wait, let me just keep talking. Now, if I have an interruption, what I like to look at is I'm looking at the bumps that you have on one side and the thread going across. So last knot that I did, my thread was coming across from here. This means on the next knot, I want my thread to come across this way. So if you get lost or you've dropped it or put it down or the doorbell rang or the internet feed dropped out, just take a little observational moment to check out what you did last. So the next step after this would be to feed a shadow, or I'm sorry, yes, a shadow, a giant king shadow on. And you know, I think my tendency would be to feed all my threads through this. What do you think, Kate?
Yeah, I
and
would.
then I can,
if it fits through.
yeah, it should fit.
Do you need
through.
a needle?
You know what? I'm going to try it without.
Okay.
First.
Because you could always use a big eye needle.
That's
for
true.
this.
So one of the things
this
I like to
technique
do
too.
Is if you're working without a needle, you can put some glue on your thread to stiffen it up. And one of the glues I like to use for that job is something called Fray Check, and it's actually something you can get at the fabric store. But Kate likes the super glue trick.
I use the hypo cement for that.
Oh, do you?
I
Okay.
do. It works really well. You could also use Zap for that as
Okay.
well.
Yeah.
They both work very well.
To stiffen it up, and make a self needle, right? So bringing that just gigantic king shadow down, it actually fed over a couple of strands. So now I actually have double threads. I could do more. I could do double strands of necklace here.
You could, or
Right.
you could choose beads that had, the long enough holes that would go
Right.
over doubled. You could knot in between with this thread. I mean,
There's a lot of things I could do with
so
this
much
now.
that you could do.
Right? And Janice did a very simple large and small. So here we are with our contrasts, right? Large and small repeat. And she alternated with the matte lapis and the copper hematite 5mm rondelle, right? And she just added this in. It's just such a simple stringing pattern, but it's really a nice one. You don't have to do something too complex. If you don't want to, or if you feel like your centerpiece is complex enough, that is perfectly fine to just continue in a very simple manner right along. Okay?
So let me show you how I'm going to add a centerpiece to this.
Do it.
I have macrameed over my 4mm. I used my 0.4 millimeter CKC, and I've used over that number 3 tough cord like I did in the piece. And I arbitrarily chose the tough cord, the gold tough cord, because I thought, well, if any of the gold thread shows, it's nice to have a little bit of contrast, but they could all match. Doesn't really matter. I chose 2 colors because I wanted to mix it up a little bit, which is what I like to do, with a little bit of a contrasting color. Then I have here's my disc, and I have my little centerpiece here. And I'm going to start with this end, and the length that I macrameed, let me see, it's about 2 1/4. I'm going to come in, I'm going to come up through the square connector. I'm going to put this little circle of bronze on so it hangs off, just for a little added interest. I'm going to come through the square connector so you can see what I've got here. Is that square connector, the macrame is hanging on the front, and see how the macrame is just coming out right there at the back. Now with this end, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to go through my disc. I'm going to bring everything around. And you can see, I could have just a little more macrame, but I can do that. I can do that later. I'm going to actually adjust this. We'll pretend that that's the right length. So I might need about 2.5 inches maybe. But I want on the front, I want all the macrame to show. So it's a little short on the back, but I'm not going to worry about it at this point. Then I could just create one big overhand knot, like this, just like I do with purl knotting. Tighten each one of these threads before I completely tighten the knot, like that. Then I'll split all of these threads here and tighten everything up. Now I have something that I can attach. I could use this as a tassel, or I could pull this knot to the back, because I can still move stuff around. I could move all of this to the back like this and just put some dangles off of the front of this circle of bronze.
Absolutely.
That would work out. I just need to tighten this a little bit, but I think that actually might be.
Oh, I like that layer.
I do too.
Those
and
circle
then I
of bronze are really cool.
Or I could just do nothing and have this just sit just like that. So you've got a myriad of possibilities there. I'm going to tighten this down because I want to go to this side and show you guys this closure. Actually, what I want to do before that is, this is a little trick for closing off your macrame that we've been talking about, was posted in the group this morning, and I'm going to use it on this closure that I'm making.
Super clever.
But this was posted by one of our bead table group members, Allie Morey. She did a beautiful kind of wrap that incorporates a lot of macrame, and I thought that this closure was ingenious. So Allie, this is all you, and I'm never going to close macrame any other way than this again. It was terribly clever. Now, Brandon, I hope that you can see.
We're on you real close.
Real tight. Let me get the... So I've started with a little length, and I've macrame down, macrame down, macrame down here. And you can see this collapsible eye needle? See how I laid the collapsible eye needle down on my piece that I was macrameing, and then I started macrameing over the top of it.
Yes.
I'm going to keep doing that for a couple more stitches.
So maybe 4 sets or 5 sets?
4 or 5 sets.
Okay.
And I want them to be firm, but I don't want them to be as tight, super, super tight as I can get them, because I need to have room for when I pull these cords through. So
that room will get filled up.
It'll get filled up with these cords. So now I'm going to just string my CKC, both going the same direction, and I need a little extra
air
there. Now I'm going to use a plier because I don't know if my hands will grip it. And I'm going to grab my needle right there, and I'm going to start to pull it through.
It's like magic.
Yeah. I'm going to pull it, and I want to make sure that I don't have this too tight and that I have enough extra. Again, it's a little hard for me to see. And we're just going to pull those threads. Let me get this a little more. Need a little extra thread here so it'll pull. I'm going to try and do this so you guys can see what I'm doing.
Because it's folding up on itself as
Yeah.
it pulls those ends inside.
It's going to pull those ends right through. Sometimes you have to.
I like it.
I like it too. You're going to get it right through
Yeah,
there.
I could have definitely done that on this bale that I started
Yeah.
today.
And you have to kind of finagle it, but there it goes.
Yeah.
And you can see, I just want to pull all of these extras. There goes that one.
Yeah, because it's not only going through just once, it's actually going through double.
Yeah, and there goes that one. And so you have to just slowly and evenly pull everything so it's nice and tight, but not too tight. There we go. That one, there's a little bubble of thread that there it goes, that I needed to pull out. So see,
I like how you're guiding that along and holding it on top with your finger, so nothing gets pulled out of shape.
Yeah. And if you're going to do this, give it a little practice run. But see that there, how those threads flip back, went underneath. Now I can just clip these off.
They all got it, they said, just like a silk wrap.
Right? Yeah, just like a silk wrap. Now I'm going to clip this one away, being careful just to clip that thread and just to clip that thread.
And it's
look
like
at that.
Gone,
done,
baby.
Done and done.
Yeah.
So something like this now, let me show ya.
Let me show you.
We can do a couple of things for closures. Now, I have this one that's ready to go, and I'm going to show you that in just a second. But I've been thinking about closures for this piece all week. And I thought, you know, we want to do something maybe a little, I don't know, a little different or a little unique. Do I have some of the buttons here?
You do.
There they are. Kind of interesting and different, or I don't know, something. I actually don't want the button on that one. And I was thinking, I hope I didn't make this loop too small. You want to make sure and measure that loop beforehand, but I think
Are you okay?
I think I'm okay.
Good.
So I'm going to make a closure kind of based on, you guys remember last week. Was it just last week? 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago when Janice was
when
here?
we were doing Janice's piece. We were doing a lot of silk wrapping. So just kind of go with me. Where are the threads? Do you have the thread snips over there? Just go with me, and I want to show you how I'm going to make these two closures. Now see what I have here. I cut just a piece of the 1.5 millimeter leather. I'm making it into a loop. And see how I have that loop that I just made, and I checked that loop to make sure it fits on this button. Okay? Now I'm going to lay these loops kind of back to back, and you guys know what I'm going to do? I bet you can guess. I can hear you out there shouting. What? It's going to be all about a silk wrap here. And I'm going to silk wrap all of these together. And what I'm forgetting to do is I'm going to put a circle of bronze down there. Just stick with me. Stick with me, kids. Stick with me. So I've got, just to reiterate, a scrap of the 1.5 millimeter leather, the circle of bronze, and my loop that fits over my button. I'm going to silk wrap. You can silk wrap using anything. I'm going to silk wrap using this Chinese knotting cord. I'm going to make my little loop. We've got a skill builder on silk wrapping to really get you going if you haven't done silk wrapping before. But essentially I have a 1/3 to 2/3 ratio on my thread. I've created a loop, and with this long piece of thread I'm going to come in, start my wrap, bring it around. That's a little bit long for the silk wrap. I'm going to have it go up just a little bit more. There we go. And wrap all of this. I'm capturing everything. The 2 strands of tough cord, my 2 strands of leather, my loop for my silk wrap. I'm capturing everything right there. Go one more time. Now to finish my silk wrap, I put my thread through the loop. I pull on the other side to capture that little knot underneath. And you can see that little closure, that loop is pulling right down. And see how it's just pulling underneath the wrap there. So it's nice and secure, and I can, if I have my thumb on the top, I can feel that knot slip right underneath. I'm going to just make sure that my loop is nice and tight. And I could put a little bit of glue underneath this if I felt the need to. But first, let me get rid of all of this extra stuff so you can see it. Where are the thread snips? They're right in front of me. I'm going to get rid of this cord, this cord. Whoops, that flew in the air. Sorry about that. This cord. Now I'm going to pull this down so it's nice and tight here. And I think I will add just a touch of glue underneath this because I want everything to be really tight, really secure. I'm going to cut away this one. And I'm not going to cut away my base threads from this loop quite yet because I'm going to add a little bit of glue. Here's my baggie. And I could have wrapped over the top with some of this, put a little bit of the glue over the top. But I'll add a little bit of hypo cement right in there, and right there, and right there. I have those little tails of leather too that I'm actually going to cut away. I could have also silk wrapped over those, but let me just get rid of them. There we go. That looks a lot cleaner. A little bit of glue on the end, and I'm going to let that dry, and then I'll cut this away. Now, can you see the component that I've got there? Looks pretty nice. I have a companion component.
Wow, Kate, I love how this is kind of becoming a. One of the things I like about wire working is that you're kind of making it yourself.
Yeah.
And this has the same kind of feel to it.
Feel to it, right?
You know,
this
that
closure.
You're making it yourself.
Yeah.
You didn't have to buy a special one, but
you can see underneath here I've kind of mimicked that look. I probably should have made these loops about the same length, but that's okay. It's tight so I can't move it. See how I've got that circle of bronze down there? Mm-hmm. I came back up, I macrameed, and see how I did that Ali Mori trick by stuck the needle in there to macrame?
We're never going to, Ali, I hope you're watching, because we're never ever going to do it any other way.
No, ever. So I'm just going to close this up. I can continue to macrame up, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to pull this through, this away, and this away. I think the secret to really getting this done, this macrame pull, really effectively, is to give yourself a lot of room in the loops, because you need enough extra thread here to pull when you pull the needle underneath. So see how these loops are real big? If they're tight, you have trouble. So I'm going to hold it, and we'll feed those ends right through. There we go. See how those went through real nicely? Get those ends through, take off this needle, toss it aside, and this will really show getting those macrame loops. And I bet you could just pull them one at a time to get them really perfectly done. One at a time that way. Look at that. Look at how nice that looks. And I'll come in and I'll clip away. I'll get a little closer to my eye level. Snips.
Sorry.
So I don't cut any of the macrame, because that would be really sad. There we go. And I can also clip away that extra. Maybe I can side clip it a little bit so it looks intentional. And I'm going to get rid of these here. here and here. There we go. So you can see I've created, look at that closure. And I might come in, I could even silk wrap. This connection to me looks a little meh, so I actually might come back and silk wrap again over the top.
I think you might.
Because see this little elbow,
Right.
I don't like the way that looks.
Right.
But that's okay. I'll just come back in and re-silk wrap over it. Or I could macrame over
Right.
this whole thing as well. But see this closure that I have now. Let me show you how I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna make, I've got the end of my necklace here. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, I'm going to macrame, 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 so I've got a nice length. And I'm going to come back around. But I need something, a bead to anchor in there, so that when I come back in and tie a knot, I can bring all these threads through.
Oh, I see.
So I'm going to do that with, you and me know what bead I love. The shadow bead.
Hi, shadows.
Hi. And so why don't you point out a little bit what you're doing, Em, and
Sure.
I'll get this in the position to close this off.
So one of the things I really liked about Janice's piece was the tassel in the front. Because
Yes.
it adds a lot of movement and a lot of interest and a lot of dangles. I actually went off the reservation just a little bit by not adding the layer piece here, right? Leaving that out for the moment. But I really liked how she finished this off, so this tassel kind of sprouts out of the middle. And I didn't have quite enough time to make more than one or two. I made just a couple little shorter tassels. I kind of liked having a little bit of variation in the lengths, right? So if I was going to make just what Janice did, I would have strung all of my strands first. So once I have my grouping of strands, I can actually tie them together if I feel like it, or I don't even have to do that. Just feed them right through now my tassel top, 8mm coral rondelle. Okay? And I don't need all this thread. I've got way too much.
Way too much thread.
Way too much thread. Now I'm going to feed it right through the whole of the warrior, out the back side. And I need another one of those coral beads. I'm going to feed my strands through there. And so you see how this coral bead holds the front and it fills in the hole just perfectly. I'm going to go ahead and tie the knot on the back side just like I would for a pearl knot. Make my overhand knot with both strands. And in this case, I would actually go through that loop twice. So we've talked about surgeon's knots before, where instead of just passing through the loop of the knot to make the knot once, you pass through twice. And that's what I'm going to do here. This will give me a little bit bigger bulk to my knot and make it act more like a stopper. So I'm going to get my threads tightened up on my awl, slide my awl down, pushing this stuff all very firmly, pulling that knot tight, tightening it to the awl so the knot's getting smaller and smaller.
The awl sure is an indispensable tool for this technique, right?
It's my favorite tool with no moving parts.
Yep. You're the reason why we added the awl.
That's right. So tighten it by separating the two strands. So that lets my tassel in the front get snugged up on that side. This is Janice again being really clever. And sometimes I know a lot of these tricks that we come up with, sometimes we come up with them kind of on the fly. But Janice is also not working with every bead that we have. So she sometimes has to figure out a fix, right? So instead of having loops of macrame, those could hang down from the bottom, she's put up a tassel way up high here. She glued the back, and I would have just tied a couple more beads on the back here, I think. That would have been my fix for it. But she glued the back of her knot and then trimmed off her threads. You could also seal them off with a thread burner, if you like. And I think she just used hypo cement, which is always my choice for working with thread.
Yeah.
One of the things I like about it is that it dries clear, and it dries slightly flexible. So not a stiff, hard piece of material on the back. But here's Janice's version. Right?
And that was just the 8mm rondelle,
Yeah.
right? And we also pulled out a few of the 5mm rondelles.
We
kind
did.
of in a pile.
Yep.
The 5 mils are great if you need little like spacers and stuff.
These would have been great little bumpers at the bottom of
Yeah.
these tassel fringes.
And you can use these, in addition to those hematite rondelles.
Right. Got a couple colors here that would look great. And I love those little mixes. I love a mix where it actually has a little bit of extra. So I started stringing up the rest of the necklace, just like Janice did hers. I, of course, varied a little bit on the theme because I'm pesky like that. And just did a slightly different pattern than she did. I think I would like more of the coral in this design. Looking at it from my own use perspective, I think I'd want to have a little bit more coral. So I was planning on having more.
Yeah, it looks great though, and I love the way that this shadow bead, and look at how clean your closure
didn't that
make
that little larkspur thing just
terribly clever.
It happened by accident.
We are
truly.
having discoveries right and left today.
Yeah.
So let me show you then how I would use this little closure that I made. I also really dig this little closure. I mean, you could use this just on a strung piece.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
You could do this. It would
Absolutely.
look great. So remember how I had that big shadow bead that I put on earlier? It's just how I did this one. I used it here for that side. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get my center threads. I'm going to go through with my center threads, and I'm going to go through. There's plenty of room in that big shadow, and I've used a collapsible eye needle, and I want to make sure it's not too twisted. There we go, and not totally tight quite yet. And then I'm going to use also a collapsible eye needle to bring those strands through. And I know I have another collapsible eye needle here somewhere. Let me clear the decks a little bit. We're getting a little. Are
we getting a little messy?
A little messy.
What? It's a creative mess.
Go. It is. Let's make sure everybody can see. There we go. Alrighty. So now I'm going to bring each of these through, and I think I can bring them through together. Let's see. If I have to bring them through one at a time, I could. But let's make sure that these are coming through. And we want to go in the same direction. So I'm taking that needle through the circle of bronze, tightening the threads up, and then coming right through. If you need to create a little more space in that shadow bead, kind of push it up with your finger and slide the needle up along the top of the tunnel of the bead so you're not catching any thread. Now I'm going to remove my needle and let's just tighten everything up. I should have unclasped this because
Why, are you making it harder on yourself?
I am. Let me get rid of the second half of this clasp. There we go.
You know what? I like what you're doing here because clasps really are. They're a link or they're a joint. They're a connection that has to move in every direction and be strong.
And I think they're, and from a style perspective, one of the most important parts of your piece. They
definitely are something. I want it to look as good at the end as it does in the front. You know, but I really like adding this little bit of a link here.
Yeah. Thanks.
Very good.
Now, what I could do, I could just tie a knot, but Em, would you put your finger right there?
I'd be happy to.
I want you to be
the clamp.
You might be my clamp. So I'm going to use this end to just macrame, if I can, right over. I could set this right up on my board, but I'm just going to do this like this. Set this right up so that I macrame. I'm catching the inner thread, and it's going to give me a really clean closure. So I do go from the right and then the left, tighten that down. Tighten, tighten. This is why you need to bead with a buddy. So they can be your clamp. Make sure that's closed up, and then I'll do it one more time so it's nice and tight. I can also, at this point, before I tie my other knots, maybe I'll put a little bit of my glue right there so that I'll macrame right over the glue instead of trying to shove the glue under the macrame. What do you think about that?
I think it's pretty slick.
Then, come here, thread. Closing, you know, like I always say, closing takes almost as much time as stringing the whole darn piece,
mindful.
right? Yeah, you have to be really mindful.
Boring.
Right?
I hate that part. I hate having to pay attention.
I love to close.
I just want to get done and wear it.
If I were a surgeon, I'd be the one who'd be the closer.
Oh.
Close it up, nurse. Gotcha. I'm on it. But I'm not, thankfully. So I'm just going to be the closer on this necklace. There we go. Let me take a look at it. Yep, looks good. So I might add a little more glue over the top of that. And then I'll let you guys really see it as up close as you can get there. Here and here. And whenever I glue an ending knot like this, I will let it sit 24 hours before I cut anything away. Now I know you're asking, okay, well, Kate, how long is the necklace going to end up being? So let me mock this up and see. Hopefully I measured it correctly. So what I have here, I am actually going to get rid of these threads because they're so long. I'll cut them away a little closer later. But this side, this length, yeah, this necklace, it's going to be about 20 inches, 22 inches. And again, you can figure out, this is 1, 2, 3, 4 of these 10 millimeter and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those beaded sections. So you can, and this closure, you can adapt. You can make it longer or shorter, just depending on what you need for the length of the necklace.
This is such a great closure. Again, because you're making it yourself.
Yeah.
So, did you not order enough? You're okay.
Yeah, you're okay.
You're all right. This is what you're going to do. And yet, I love putting that circle of bronze in there. That, to me, is just, it's genii.
Thanks. I thought it was pretty. I wanted something that not only did I want to have that element here, but I wanted to put it somewhere in the necklace.
Yeah.
I felt like it needed a little joint or a little bit of movement.
It's kind of my, how I feel about a soldered ring.
Yeah.
I love a soldered jump ring.
Yeah, I do too.
And this is definitely kind of, it's being our soldered jump ring for the day.
It is. It's really holding on.
Yeah.
I'm trying to silk wrap this piece real quick. I don't know if I'm going to be successful at it. What we can do is before we sign off, I think people want to see what we're wearing. So why don't I silk wrap this, and you talk a little bit about these things that we're wearing here.
This is Kate's Minerva bracelet.
What they call it, her arm
goddess.
candy.
Yeah,
the
my
arm
goddess,
candy.
my arm candy.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure who made this one. Karen might have made that one.
And this is done with the English cuts, which of course are kind of new for us still, but really still getting lots of play. And love how she did it.
And we did a whole project on beadshop.com website.
This was Free Tip Friday.
It was last Friday.
Yep,
and you guys have been going crazy with the springs, which are really super awesome. I love that you've been creating these great necklaces and bracelets with them. And then what have you got right
I have another
there?
one on.
I love that one.
It's kind of an oldie but a goodie. And again, playing with jump rings and wire wrapping. This is actually, I call this a signature bracelet. And this has a little knot.
Yes.
Knot. Right at either end of each wrap.
And that would be Kara's.
Is it Kara's bracelet? Awesome. That one, yeah. Kara and Karen and I made a whole bunch of
pretty
different ones. So Kara did a beautiful job using those English cuts. Really, really nice.
I'm going to have to put in a plug for your earrings.
Oh, Kate's earrings are
Oh.
so spectacular.
I'll toss those down. Toss them down, Em.
Oh
you
my
talk
gosh.
about those while I finish this up.
Yeah, Kate is really an awesome metal worker.
You are
and I
very
have to
kind.
tell you, if you guys get a chance to take a class with her,
You are very fun.
Bead and Button is coming up.
They are. Janice and I are teaching.
Bead Fest Philly is
in
also
August.
coming.
Yeah.
And somebody asked earlier about Bead Fest Philly. Kate is teaching some classes there, but she's really...
We're going to have a bead shop meetup. It's going to be fun.
She's really beginning to run with it as well. We talked about this last week, but she's working metalsmithing and she's putting together a lot of different elements that she's really great with.
You're very nice.
So she's cutting out pieces with and texturing them herself.
Making some little
stone
things.
setting.
Yeah.
Bending tubing.
Yeah.
All those things are
fun.
really coming together.
Thanks. These were kind of fun. I'm still working this out, but I'm pretty pleased with them. But teaching myself a lot of good stuff that hopefully I'll get to teach to you guys someday.
It's funny, we have been talking about that self-teaching thing, and lately the idea that you're taught by us entirely, or that you learn by yourself entirely. There's no one way that everyone learns things.
Yeah.
You learn certainly by experience, by stepping in a puddle, your feet get wet, you don't want to do that again. You learn by knotting with the wrong material when it breaks.
Learning by doing.
Choice.
Yeah.
It was a poor choice.
Yeah.
But you learn so many different ways, and it's always a combination of things.
Yeah. That's really true. And, no one learns in a vacuum.
Well, it's funny, my parents are both gone now, and I consistently can think of my dad saying something to me, and I think, you know what? He's still teaching me.
Yeah.
Even though they're gone.
Yeah.
They're still listening. I'm still listening to their voices, and sometimes they're teaching me not to do things. Because they'll say, it was really unfortunate that I spent a lot of money on that red convertible and loaned it to a friend, and he wrecked it.
Right.
So there's things that you learn.
You learn and you keep with you.
You keep with you. So you're still learning even long after those people are gone out of your life. Because sometimes they're teaching you by what they taught you to do, and sometimes they're teaching you about the things they taught you not to do.
Right, your mistakes, exactly. Well, you can see, here's our closure. And you can see I'm going to come up and around and do kind of this woven thing. I don't know, I might throw some of these little beads in there. I'm not really sure how that's going to evolve quite yet. Since I've got some of these.
I sort of like this kind of
all the way up. I think it would be a nice contrast.
And those links,
And then I do the same thing. I do that same closure here that I did with that one. You can see I did a little silk wrapping over the top of the initial silk wrap, so things look a little neater and a little sturdier. So I think they came together. They came together pretty well. It was pretty fun. Pretty fun projects, pretty fun take on vintage finds. I hope that you guys take a lot of good techniques away from this. Brandon, I guess we'll change up the camera and we'll do some signing off, and we'll chat a little bit to close here. Really looks great.
Coming along.
Yeah, I really love that. That closure is so good.
Oh, you mean
good.
the loop around? That was like magic. Good. I don't know how that turned out so
terribly clever,
smoothly.
Oh, you're terribly clever.
I got lucky.
Well, that's a good thing.
Well, and I suppose sometimes it's preparing yourself to be lucky too, by having had some other experiences.
Yeah.
There's nothing, but there's no difference between what Kate and I have been doing and what you can do. The difference is that we've done it a few times. For a few years. And really, that's the only difference. We've had some experiences.
Yeah, keep practicing.
Keep practicing and keep doing. I know that I've been happy to get emails from some of you with your finished projects, things that I've inspired you to do.
Yes, we love those shares.
And it means that you're doing things and using your hands, using your knowledge, and having experiences and learning things on your own. Well, you need us, but you need yourselves too.
Yeah, you need to do some practicing. So we've got for today, as we wrap up, we have a great kind of. It's not a giveaway this week. It is actually a drawing. A drawing. Yes. And I thought it would be really fun. A lot of times we've got giveaways after the broadcast, for the hour after the broadcast. And sometimes we do raffles. And I thought today would be fun to do a giveaway. So when you place your order, I'm going to hand this one over to you, Emily. It's a little after 12 o'clock Pacific time. We are on the West Coast, so it is 12, according to the clock on my computer, it's 12:15 p.m. on Wednesday, March 21st. When you place an order of any size for about the next hour, until about a little after 1 p.m. Pacific time, and you write "I Heart Vintage Finds" in your shipping notes, we're going to enter you in a drawing. Two of you are going to win, and I've got 2 pallets here.
Amazing.
So
piles.
I put together a little grouping of beads from our Vintage Finds collection. One grouping has this really cool, this big centerpiece we were talking about earlier, some metal beads, some of these jade rings, a couple of those wanderlust, and a strand of these serpentine beads that I just love.
Me crazy.
And then the other collection is more in a kind of a warm tones with this carnelian dagger, these little pinwheels in carnelian, some of the little tortoise shells, the carved round, and then, of course, one of the really cool cranberry serpentines. So there are 2 giveaways that we're going to do a drawing for, and we'll do that drawing at about 1:15 today.
Right after we finish lunch.
Right after we finish lunch, and all the orders are in during that time frame. And we also have today only, we are knocking off 20% of all the Vintage Finds that you order. So you can use coupon code VINTAGE20, and the Vintage Finds sale ends tonight at midnight, 3/21/2018. And again, that 20% off is only good on our Vintage Finds category, but there is so much in there, you guys, that you're going to want to grab. So our giveaway until 1 o'clock today Pacific time, and this coupon code is good until tonight at midnight Pacific time. That's what I've got. Get on it. So Friday, I'm going to see you Friday for Free Tip Friday. It's going to be great. What it is, I don't know yet, but I will by Friday. So I'll see you at 10:30 then, and then next week, Emily.
Oh, right.
You know what happens.
I do.
Yeah.
I know. Next week, it's my turn to lead you guys in something.
It is.
We're going back to Seed Beat School.
It is.
So we're going to continue to play with Vintage Finds, and we're going to do a piece with bead embroidery. And
yes.
this is kind of bead embroidery number 1. I
yes.
expect that we're going to have at least 2, possibly 3, just seeing how it goes. This is going to be just kind of getting started on using a couple of different seed bead stitches on a backing. So bezeling something and making some embellishments.
It's going to be
attaching
so good.
A pin back, which
yes.
will also answer lots of questions for you who wanted to mount your heart on a pin back instead.
And we're using Ultra Suede.
We're going to use Ultra Suede, which is
it's going to be so fun.
Ultra good.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Ultra Suede is suede without all the work.
Yeah, and the pins that you have made are beautiful. I can't wait to learn.
It's really fun.
The way along.
Bead embroidery is very meditative. It's a little bit like macrame in that sense. It's very kind of calm and repeat.
I'll have a new pin to add to my jacket.
I know.
It'll be good.
It'll
I can't
be
wait.
really good.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, you guys, that's it for us today from beadshop.com. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, you can find all the materials, all the stuff here right on our website. You can go right to the project page for Born Yesterday and see these new pieces. I'll have the finished project, my half of the finished project up. It'll be posted. And don't forget, on Monday, you'll see the wrap-up from Drea in the form of episode notes, so you can download those.
I love the episode notes.
Yes. Well, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, and we'll see you guys soon.
Yeah. See you next Wednesday.
Have a great day,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Bye.
This is so pretty.
It's
this
so
pile. It's so pretty.
I like those a lot.